top 10 best video games I've ever played. Here we go. What is going on, my Maniacs? BioLogicalEX1 is back in the house once again. And this time I will give you all my top 10 favorite video games that I have ever played, which it is my honest opinion. If you have not checked out my last video that I made, it was my top 10 worst video games that I have ever played, which I will link it down in the description or anywhere up there. But yeah, if you saw my last video, I was giving out my top 10 worst video games I've ever played, which it was a collab to both Jack of Gold Kick and Larry the Batman Fan, which this is going to be another friendly collab because they also did their top 10 best video games that they have ever played, you know, besides of their top 10 worst video games that they have ever played. So without wasting any time, I'm going to get on to my honorable mentions, which I have 5 honorable mentions, which they are kind of close to making on my top 10 best video games list, but not quite. But I will be doing and attempting more of this in the future. But for now, this is my first 5 honorable mentions of the best video games that I have ever played, in my honest opinion. So the first honorable mention game that I have ever played that was a very good, decent game, and this is an old school game, and the game is called Midnight Rescue Super Solvers. I remember Games and Total Productions upload that video with his old account, you know, before it got terminated, you know, rest in peace, Games and Total Production. No more, he's alive, I'm talking about that account. But I remember back in the days, back in my elementary school days, that I went to the library and I played this game on PC for like a half an hour before going to lunch. And there were some certain times that during my break, I decided to play this game, you know, to have my mind clear up. So I decided to play Midnight Rescue Super Solvers, and it's for PC exclusive. The story is about that this high school detective, you know, going to the school at midnight, not during the day, at midnight. That's what they call it, Midnight Rescue, to stop these robots terrorizing the school. And while the robots is terrorizing the school, there's this scientist that was behind all this mess. So you go to your school at midnight, and you walk around the hallways and you solve these puzzles. They ask you questions. You figure out what's the questions so you get the answers. The storyline is simple: to stop a mad scientist that causes robots to terrorizing the schools, and you just need to find the questions to get the right answers. You know, nothing wrong with that. It's a simple game. Lots of fun. My only issue with Midnight Rescue is that it kind of lags a bit. It's choppy. It is an old PC game, it's like mid-90s, like Windows 95 or 98, even though the game was like made like in the late 80s or early 90s. But again, it is a fun and simple, enjoyable game. And if you're a PC gamer, you know, give this game a try. Midnight Rescue Super Solvers is my first honorable mentions. My second honorable mentions, and this is gonna piss majorities of the fans who likes this game. In fact, this is not just a game, but I'm gonna put this entire series into this honorable mentions because this is gonna be the first and last time I mention about this game, and that is the Tekken series. Yeah, whatever. Who all you want? It's my opinion. Go suck it off. Whatever. Anyway, all jokes aside, I do like Tekken. I do like the Tekken games, you know, the first, second, third, Tekken Tag Team Tournament, Tag Team Tournament 2, Tekken 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. My issue with Tekken is that over the years, I'm kind of distanced myself of Tekken. It's not because of a bad game, it's that fighting games are the least of my favorite type of games to play. Now, again, I did like Tekken a lot back in the days during the PlayStation 1 and 2 era, you know, when I was young. But when I grew older, I got more into action adventure games and RPG games. And the thing about fighting games is like they get too boring quick, you know. Even though I do like fighting games from Capcom, which they make the best fighting games in my honest opinion, but Namco, they make some really good, decent fighting games, and Tekken is probably the main one. If you like Tekken, if you consider Tekken a top 10 favorite, more power to you. But, you know, my honest opinion, and again, it's an honest opinion. I should have mentioned this in the beginning of the video, like I did in my top 10 worst. You know, I kind of diss myself because I find other games out there better than Tekken and more enjoyable than Tekken. Sorry, I'm just saying. My third honorable mention is Ready to Rumble for the PS1. Again, fighting games are my least favorite, but I will admit I had a great, decent enough time to play Ready to Rumble Boxing. It is for the PS1 and for the Nintendo 64. It is made by Midway, the same Midway that created both Mortal Kombat and NFL Blitz. Ready to Rumble Boxing is like a cartoon, sillier version of HBO Boxing. They do have special moves. When you fill up the special moves on the bottom says Rumble, you tap those two buttons and the players just jumping up and down, says, let's get ready to rumble, and then it just still starts crazy, it starts throwing punches at you. Their fist gloves like glowing. It's like glowing like white or light blue, and it just have like super extra powers. But it doesn't last though, because while you got the rumble, you know, mode, the superpowers, the rumble just starts draining, and when it just drains to the end, you turn back to your normal mode. But other than that, that's pretty much about it. There's really nothing much to say about Ready to Rumble. It's a very simple boxing game. Hold on just a second, got a phone call here. Alright people, I am back. I apologize for that phone call. I had to help something out with the neighbors, and I had to change because it is raining cold outside. Number 4 of my honorable mention list is Ridge Racer, the original version from the PlayStation 1. This game is a classic. There's not really much going on Ridge Racer, especially from the first one, but to this very day, it is a fun game. There's not really much story into it. They focus more on arcade because usually games like Sega and Namco, it's originally made from Namco, but mostly Namco and Sega are like two of the main companies that mostly focus on arcade style than story. And Ridge Racer, the original, was more of an arcade style type game. And again, it didn't really have much of a story, like very little, no story into it, but it is still a very fun racing game. And my last honorable mentions before my top 10 is one of those games that was groundbreaking during the time, but kind of aged over the years, and that is Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, the first one. Now, when this game first came out, it was a huge smash hit. But over the years, it kind of aged badly. That's why I have it on my honorable mention list and now my top 10. Don't get me wrong, it is still a fun game, but at the same time, it's kind of basic compared to Melee and Brawl. It's not as great as the newer ones, but just give it a shot. It is still a fun game. So there you have it, people. Those are my 5 honorable lists on the best games I've ever played. Now we're going to move to the top 10 best games that I've ever played. We ain't going to waste any more time. So coming in number 10, Bomberman, the original from the NES. This game is awesome. Well, actually, no. This game is awesome. I'm sorry. I pointed the wrong finger. It's supposed to be here. This game is awesome. This is actually the very first Bomberman game that I've ever played. It was from the NES. And what I like about this game, especially the cover of it, it's... When you look at a cover, you thought it'd be like a great action game, which it still is. It's not as cartoonish like the PS1 version, and it's not like too dark like the Xbox 360 version. It's just a normal front cover of a Bomberman just bombing enemies and monsters. Because the game starts with an overlay, you're the Bomberman, and you're supposed to try to find your way out to the next stage by not only bombing walls to get through this maze, but to bomb monsters, because there are monsters out there to get you. And again, if you play the game, it's actually like a simple style of gameplay. Well, it is an NES, so of course it's going to be a simple style of gameplay, but this game was so much fun. So Bomberman on number 10. Number 9, Road Rash for the PS1. Now, Road Rash was originally made for the Sega Master System, but it's the PS1 version that steals the spotlight. Road Rash for the PS1 is like a steroid version from the Sega Genesis, but they made it even better. You're a racer, a motorcycle racer that has to deal with other bike riders that was trying to punch you down. Some got weapons. I mostly just use my punch, but there's some certain times when you win a race, you win money, you know, from prizes. You can actually buy like weapons, like a baseball bat, a piece of lumber, a lumber with a nail on it, a change. There's not really much selections on it, but they're like advantage of you to knock your opponents down before they knock you down. Now during the game, when you playing it, when you get to the furthest level, it gets faster and harder, which that is one of the few downsides. When you go higher level of the game, it gets more difficult because more speed means more practice, more turns. You gotta be super fast. Not only gotta be fast with your hands, but you gotta be fast with the eyes, because there's gonna be heavy traffic out there, and your opponents that you're racing against is gonna be more aggressive. And that is why it's on my number 9 list. Oh, and by the way, the menu of the game, you know, the animation cartoon menu, it's awesome too. It's also from the PC as well. So it's originally made for the PS1 and also from the PCs. Number 8. Streets of Rage, the original from the Sega Genesis. This game is awesome. It is. Some people don't like the game, you know, because of the difficulties, which is understandable, but I'm one of the few people that defend it because I thought it was a very good, decent game when it first came out. It's not as good as Streets of Rage 2, but for some odd reason, I still like it more than Streets of Rage 3, which it's not a bad game, but it wasn't all that great for some odd reason. But this is Streets of Rage 1 we're talking about here. The first one, the one that started it all. The one that started the slide, you know, the slide fighting games and stuff like that. In fact, I like Streets of Rage better than Final Fight, because Final Fight is actually a copycat of Streets of Rage, even though I did have fun with Final Fight. But this is Streets of Rage we're talking about here, so yeah. It was one of the first with the slide fighting games. The enemies here are savages. They will bum rush you, throwing you punches and stabbing you with knives. But you do have one special attack, which is the first and only special attack in any Streets of Rage game. So when you press that special attack button. I don't know which letter button was it, right? The screen will go back and there will be a cop car just shooting missiles to the sky and will just land it on these enemies and opponents that you're fighting, against. If the challenge is a little bit too much for you, because there's some bosses in Streets of Rage that will definitely put a hand whooping on you. The fourth boss, the big chubby guys that throw fire from their breath, yeah, those guys will mess you up. The female fighters from the ship, oh, they're savages. They'll whoop your ass for sure. It is the first and only special in any Streets of Rage history, because after the first one, you'll never see it ever again, especially from 2 to later on in the game. But yeah, that is Streets of Rage, the original. Check the game out and play that game. It's fun. It could be challenging. It could be difficult, but it's a lot of fun. So, Streets of Rage, number 8. Number 7, and this is kind of a bit of a cheat here because this is like a multiple games, but it's all like in one console, and they're pretty much almost all the same. So I said, screw it. Let me just put it all in there at once. So, coming number 7 is the GTA PS1 series. When I meant PS1 series, it's Grand Theft Auto London 1969, and Grand Theft Auto 2. So I call it the GTA PS1 series, or PS1 versions of it. So I'm just going to call it the PS1 series for now because it's all on PS1. The reason why I chose 3 games in one list, because they're all the same thing, You play as a person, but it's not like any type of game. You're like, just like Bomberman, you just look from above, you're like looking down and not like forward. But again, this was like back in the PS1 days, and back then it was like totally different before GTA 3 changed everything. You play as just one player, you look from above. This was like back then, on a PS1 version. And it's, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's a little bit tedious at first because you don't understand what you're doing or what to do. But the more you play around with the game and the more you kind of listening and understand, you kind of get used to it. I was like that first. I mean, I didn't know what to do, even though it was a lot of fun, but I just didn't understand what to do, during that time because it feels like so different back then. They didn't really have no professional voice actor because the moment you get on a phone, all you hear is like a little chipmunk just talking on a payphone. It was actually a payphone because this was like back in the 90s, and 90s still had payphones. They didn't have no fancy cell phones or touchscreens back then. Still got weapons. You do have weapons in the game like pistols, submachine guns, bazookas, the ordinary weapons. But again, it was fun. It was a fun game. Oh, killing Francis! You just get this green medal and you just go on a rampage, just randomly killing people. Like that one video game, like they just banned him off the shelf. But yeah, killing Francis was the first one that came out with the idea to randomly kill people. And also, there's like this bonus points that if you see a people like a line full of people, if you run them over with the car at the same time, you get some extra points on that. Just letting you know. Yes, I will admit one of the downsides is it did age bad over the years because obviously Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, the modern one. So yeah, that's one of the downsides. But other than that, I still enjoy the game, and that's why it's on my number 7 on my top 10 list. Number 6, Marvel Superheroes. I know I said earlier that I'm not too much of a fan of fighting games, but Capcom makes the best fighting games ever. In fact, Capcom is probably the only company, the only gaming development companies that will play fighting games. Like anything else, like other fighting games, like Namco or Konami, whatever they make a fighting game, something like that, it's like, I'll pass. I mean, it gets boring quick. But for some odd reason, the way Capcom make fighting games is like perfection. That is why I got this game in my top 10, because this game is one of the best fighting games I've ever played in my entire life. There's like 10 characters in that game, 6 superheroes and 4 evil villains. I mean, the odds are against the villains, but still, the villains are kind of strong. You know, you got this eyeball squid dude, I forgot what's his name. You got Juggernaut, you got Blackheart, you got Magneto. Magneto's a badass. And don't forget, you also got Doctor Doom, and you got Thanos, the first boss that you fight in Marvel Superhero, which he got so popular over the years on the later ons. But you gotta give Marvel Superhero a lot of credit, because this game was the one that created Thanos' ring, and that is why it's on my number 6. And speaking of powers, I like the special attacks that they have, you know, like the gems and the rings that they have, you know, to make them like more super, the characters you're playing. But again, if it wasn't for Marvel Superheroes, Thanos would have never been popular. So to Marvel Superheroes, to everyone that's watching, I believe this game deserves a thank you. So Marvel Superheroes is number 6. Play this game. Screw the modifying games, play Marvel Superheroes. You'll have a lot of fun with it. Trust me on that. So Marvel Superheroes, number 6. Number 5, Crash Bandicoot, the original for the PS1. This game is awesome. It is. It's very challenging, especially when you get further later onto the games, like the higher levels. Maybe when you get to the 3rd island, it gets more challenging, but it's still a fun game. You play as Crash. You start from like the first island. At first, it gets like easy. You know, you have to break all the boxes to unlock the crystals, also the gems. The gems wasn't really that popular from the first one. It got really popular from Crash Bandicoot 2, which is a better sequel compared to the original. But I decided to put the original first because this is the game that started it all. Mostly it's main on, you know, past the stages. Also, you gotta knock all the boxes out to get the crystals and also the gems. Again, they do have some gems in that game. Mostly the gems are either like mostly white or silver. Some of them are like light green, which that's the only gem I remember. It's like white and green, like a little bit of green, but mostly white, but that's about it. Crash Bandicoot is on number 5. Number 4, Resident Evil, the original, the one that started it all. Even though this game aged badly compared to the other Resident Evil games, but I have to put this one in my top 10 because I still have a lot of fun with it. Still to this very day, despite how badly it aged. And it is also one of the first games that created, you know, the 3D third-person action at the same time. But it's mostly mainly a horror game, but I like also some action elements to it as well. You started as either Chris or Joe Valentine. You out in the forest, and all of a sudden there's like mutant dogs kill one of your men, and you just run into this mansion, this umbrella mansion, and this place is gigantic. It's like a maze. You get lost easily, but after the mansion, you go to this underground tunnel that leads to this underground umbrella laboratory. And the umbrella laboratory is really not much going on compared to the remastered. But again, this was 1996. This was like one of the first. Still a challenging game, still a difficult game, but it is fun. Resident Evil, the original, on my number 4. I almost lost count again for my last one, so yeah. So Resident Evil, the original for the PS1, number 4. Number 3, Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. This game made the PS3 as the highest of its peak. Not only that it was a big successful, but it made the PS3 more popular and make people buy more PS3 than the Xbox 360. Right now, it is still a great game, but it is not as groundbreaking like it was before. But when it first came out back in the days, like in the late 2000s, it was groundbreaking. It was a real groundbreaking game. They got so much activities, so much moves to do. You duck, you shoot, there's like combat. The combat and the shooting is very smooth in that game. So if it wasn't for that game, it wouldn't be a series. You go on boat rides, you go on missions, you go on jeep rides, you find hidden treasures. What more can you say? Number 2. We're on the top 2 already, okay, people? Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. Again, just like Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and just like Marvel Superheroes. These original games, they deserve a big thank you. Sonic the Hedgehog might not be my favorite game, but it is still a fun experience game to play. One of my few negatives on the original Sonic the Hedgehog for the Genesis, that there's no spin moves, but back then they thought about that, so it's forgivable. What can I say? Blue Hedgehog, speed, high jumping abilities, boxes to break, rings, stars, you just nail enemies, you just bash them with their spikes, you know, because Hedgehogs got spikes and you just use that as weapons. So he just used, you know, spin dash just to spin dash their enemies. There's like at least 6 stages, I don't really know, you know, but there's like plenty of acts. Like each and every stage you pass, especially from the 3rd act, there's like great boss fights. Not the best, but it's very decent and can give you somewhat of a challenge. It is on my number 2 because when I first got that game back in the days, I think it was like late 90s or early 2000s, when I got myself a Sega Genesis for like the first time, because it was like during the time when I have like a summer job and I saved up all my money to buy a Sega Genesis console, which I was years late. But when I got that game, the Sonic the Hedgehog, including Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is my favorite, but when I first got the original, I have a lot of fun with it with my brother. I even shared it to my brother too, you know, because he likes video games like me, even though he's more of an Xbox 360 person than modern games, but I'm more into the classic. But I shared it with my brother to play Sonic the Hedgehog, and he enjoys this as well. So yeah, and my brother and I were Sonic fans, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if he's a diehard Sonic fan or a casual. That I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna say casual, you know, in case, because my brother doesn't play too much video games like I do, like I used to. So Sonic the Hedgehog, I had a lot of fun memories playing that game, including Part 2 and Part 3. But Sonic the Hedgehog is probably maybe my top 10 favorite Sonic the Hedgehog games of all time, and that is why it's on my number 2. My number 1 best and favorite game of all time, and again, it's my honest opinion, and some majorities of you might agree with me on this. Some, not all, because this game is not for everyone. My number 1 favorite game of all time is Parasite Eve, the original, 1998. Where can I begin with this game? I mean, when I very first got this game for the PlayStation 1, it was during my high school years when I first got it was during my high school years when I first got this game, because again, during my high school years, I did have a summer job. And during the summer job, I saved up my money to buy consoles and Genesis and PlayStation 1s, including new clothing for schools. But at the same time, I also bought like new games as well, because I had like a decent part-time job too after that. And I saved up to buy Parasite Eve. And holy moly cow, dogs all go to heaven. I fell in love with it. This game was so real. Story, settings, atmosphere, everything was so real. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, and I raised my left hand on my screen and my right hand on my side, okay? I played Parasite Eve more than my other games that I have in this list combined together. Like, I played this game so much that most majorities of the time, I forgot that I even have homework. That's right. I played this game so much that most majorities of the time that I forgot that I even have homework. That is how much I played this game all the freaking time. And it is by far the best cinematic game that I have ever played in my whole entire 30 plus years in my life. And it was worth it. Check out Parasite Eve. You won't regret it. 2 thumbs up. No. 3 thumbs up. No, 4 thumbs up. Screw that. 4 thumbs up. Yeah, 4 thumbs. Shut up, I'll lean back. 4 thumbs freaking up. Yeah, my toe right here and my toe right here. 4 thumbs up. Yeah, 4 thumbs up. This game is like a 10 star. Like the Dubai hotels. They give it a 10 freaking star. That's how great this game is. Like, it never gets old. It never gets freaking old. And again, I play this game a lot more than I study my homeworks on my high school years. That is how freaking addicted this game is. And I just couldn't stop. This game gets a 20 out of 10. No, a 30 out of 10. Screw it. 10 stars. Go play Parasite Eve. Best PlayStation 1 game ever. And it's definitely by far my favorite game in the entire list. That is it, people. Those are my top 10 best games that I've ever played, including my top 5. And yes, I did say top 5 honorable mentions. But tell me your thoughts about this list. This is BioLogicalEX1. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, hit notification, be part of Biomaniacs, and I will see you on my next top 10 best or worst video games. And like Cody Leach says, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be. Shouts to Cody Leach. Peace out. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Yeah.